To recap my video on the Viking founding of Dublin, in 837 AD, a Viking fleet of 120 longships sailed to Ireland from parts unknown. The commander of the fleet was the Viking sea king Turgesius. In 837 AD, Turgesius and his Viking forces crushed the forces of the Southern O'Neill kings in County Meath. After plundering most of the churches and Irish villages in Meath in eastern Ireland, Turgesius declared himself to be sovereign of all the foreigners in Ireland and ruler of the northern half of Ireland, including the provinces of Meath, Ulster, and Connaught. In 841 AD, the Viking followers of Turgesius built long forts at Dublin and Lyn Duchnail near Annagassan in County Louth. In the following decade, Vikings would build permanent settlements in Cork, Arklow, Wicklow, and Waterford. In 845 AD, Mael Shecnail, the Irish king of Meath and a vassal king of Turgesius, captured Turgesius and had him drowned in Lake Owl. Mael Shecnail would become High King of Ireland in 846 AD when Niall Kelly, the prior High King, accidentally drowned in the Callan River near Armagh. Turgesius' death left a void in the Viking leadership in Ireland. The void led to Viking on Viking warfare, where the Fine Gael, or fair foreigners who had been settling in Ireland, were attacked by the Dub Gael, or dark foreigners, who came from across the sea. We do not know the origins of the Dub Gael Vikings. The Vikings kept no records of their own. In 851 AD, the Dub Gael captured and burned the Fine Gael settlement at Dublin. Finally, in 853 AD, the Viking Amlaib Conung, son of the king of Laithland, arrived in Dublin to take control and end the war between the Dub Gael and the Fine Gael. Laithland may refer to Norway, but more likely refers to Norse-controlled Scotland, the Scottish Hebrides, and the Isle of Man. In 853 AD, Amlaib, the supposed son of Gofraid, king of Lathland, came to Dublin and declared himself king of Dublin and all the foreigners, whether Fine Gael or Dub Gael. If Amlaib was the son of the king of Lathland, it is supposed that he was Fine Gael. Amlaib may or may not be the same person as Olaf the White. Both Gwyn Jones and Peter Hunter Blair dispute the claim that Amlaib and Olaf the White are the same person. We are at the point in time where Norse history emerges from legend. And all this history comes from the Irish side, as the Norse wrote nothing of their own history during this period. Under Amlaib's control, the war between the Fine Gael and the Dub Gael ended immediately. Amlaib received hostages from both the Vikings and the Irish. According to the Fragmentary Annals of Ireland, quote, Mael Shecnail tried to come to terms with his dangerous new rival in 854, but without success, unquote. In 854 or 855 AD, once Amlaib had established his position as the undisputed leader of the Vikings in Dublin, both Fine Gael or Dub Gael, Amlaib left Ireland to fight in Britain. Amlaib returned to Dublin in 857 with his two brothers, Imar and Osly, and made them his co-kings in Dublin. Amlaib made Imar his co-king in 857 AD. Amlaib made Osly his co-king in 863 AD. Clare Downham believes that Imar is the same person as Ivar the Boneless, based on the dates of Imar's and Ivar the Boneless's disappearances and reappearances in Ireland and Britain. Donchada O'Caroyne disputes the assertion that Imar and Ivar the Boneless are the same person. The dates convince me, and I believe that Imar and Ivar the Boneless are the same person. Osly died in 867 AD. Imar disappears from the Irish annals in 865 AD, just in time for Ivar the Boneless to appear in England as the leader of the great heathen army. Ivar the Boneless disappears from England in 870 AD, just in time for Imar and his brother Amlaib to capture Dumbarton Rock, the great fortress of the Brighton kingdom of Strathclyde in present-day Scotland. Imar died in 873 AD. I may tell the story of Ivar the Boneless and the Great Heathen Army in a future video. You can watch a video of the Great Heathen Army on the YouTube channel History with Hilbert. You can watch a video called The Real Ivar the Boneless on History Times YouTube channel. I shall include links to both these videos below. Amlaib and Imar used Dublin as a base to raid Britain and, on occasions, other parts of Ireland. To keep the native Irish kings from constantly attacking them, they made treaties with them or married into their families. Amlaib was married many times. He may have married the daughter of Eadh Finlaith, the king of Ailech, a northwestern province of Ireland in modern-day Donegal County. Eadh Finlaith, chieftain of the Northern O'Neill, became High King of Tara following the death of Maelshicnail in 862 AD. The royal center of power of the Northern O'Neill was in Ailech. Donegal translates as Fort of the Foreigners being the Vikings, which shows the influence the Vikings had in place names in modern-day Ireland. Amlaib may have also married the daughter of Cnaid MacConaill, the king of Brega, king of the Southern O'Neill. Cnaid MacConaill was the king of Connacht, whom Maelshicnail and Tigernach had captured and drowned in 851 AD for betraying them in his alliance with the Vikings of Dublin. Brega is the region that straddles the border between Meath County and Dublin County, just north of the River Liffey. Amlaib may have also married the daughter of Cerbal MacDunlage, the king of Osraige. Osraige is a tribal kingdom of southern Ireland between the greater kingdoms of Leinster and Munster. In 856 AD, two important ecclesiastical settlements in Brega, Slane and Lusk, were sacked. Brega was in a territory ruled by High King Maelshicnail. The annals do not name the attackers, but historian Clare Downham suspects they were the Vikings of Dublin. In 857 AD, Amlab and Imar defeated the Norse-Irish leader Gáedhil Find and his Gaedhil in a battle in Munster. Gaedhil were Norse-Irish clans who often worked as mercenaries. In later times, elite Norse Gael mercenaries became known as the Gallo class. In 858 AD, Imar and Cerbal MacDunlage defeated the Southern O'Neill clan, the Kennel Fiachech, and the Gaedhil at Air Tare, near Nina in County Tipperary in Munster. The Kennel Fiachech clan originated in Westmeath County and were subjects of the High King of Ireland, Maelshicnail. In 859 AD, Amlab, Imar, and Cerbal MacDunlage, the king of Osraige, attacked the High King of Ireland, Maelshicnail, and his Gaedhil in County Meath. Later in 859 AD, however, at the Royal Synod of Rathugh, County Westmeath, in the territory of the Kennel Fiachech clan, a temporary peace was made between the Vikings of Dublin and High King Maelshicnail. Cerbal MacDunlage, king of Osraige, submitted to Maelshicnail, and his kingdom of Osraige was transferred from the king of Munster to High King Maelshicnail's authority. This submission ended Cerbal MacDunlage's alliance with Amlaib and Imar. The king of Munster, Maelgalaibh MacDungailey, agreed to this transfer of authority. Later in 859 AD, Maelgalaibh, king of Munster, was captured by the Dublin Vikings, who killed him in a pagan sacrifice. The Old Irish document, the Cogad, War of the Irish with the Foreigners, implies that the Munstermen were victorious against the Vikings despite the loss of their king. The Vikings were able to settle in Ireland because the Irish were too divided to push them out. Paradoxically, this apparent weakness may be the one reason the Vikings were never able to conquer the whole of Ireland. The Irish were so divided that kings could easily be replaced, and conquering one territory or killing one petty king would not cause the collapse of the whole of Irish society, as it might in England or France. If a French or English king was defeated or killed, the whole country might surrender. This was the case when Edmund Ironside, King of England, lost the Battle of Ashington to Canute the Great, or when Harold II Godwinson lost to William the Conqueror at Hastings. In both cases, when a Viking Norman warlord defeated the King of England, the Viking Norman warlord became King of England. The Vikings stopped trying to conquer the whole of Ireland, but fought skirmishes with local petty kings as necessary. Primarily, the Vikings used Dublin as a base to launch raids against Britain or France. In 860 AD, High King Maelshicnail and Curbal MacDonaldh, King of Austrage, fought against Aed Finlaith of the Northern O'Neill and the son of the previous High King of Tara, Neil Cally, who died in 846 by drowning in the Callan River near Armagh. Aed Finlaith was allied with Flann MacConaill of Brega, County Meath. Maelshicnail and Curbal MacDonaldh defeated Aed Finlaith and Flann MacConaill in a battle at Moy near Armagh. According to the Fragmentary Annals of Ireland, Amlaib, who was married to the daughter of Aed Finlaith, was among the defeated at Moy. Aed Finlaith survived his defeat to continue his fight with Maelshicnail. In 861 AD, Aed Finlaith and Amlaib and his Vikings of Dublin plundered Maelshicnail's territories in County Meath. In 862 AD, Aed Finlaith, Flann MacConaill, and the Vikings of Dublin attacked County Meath again and plundered at will. Maelshicnail died peacefully on November 30th, 862 AD. Aed Finlaith succeeded him as High King of Tara. Maelshicnail's territory in County Meath was divided between rival kings Lorcan MacAithel and Conchobar MacDonchada. The Vikings of Dublin allied with Lorcan MacAithel, King of Meath. In 863 AD, Lorcan, Amlaib, Imar, and Ostley invaded Flann MacConaigh's kingdom of Brega that straddles the border between Meath and Dublin County. Lorcan MacAithel and the Vikings, quote, plundered the megalithic tombs of the Boyne Valley in an unprecedented act of sacrilege, unquote. In 863 AD, Mirican MacDermada, the king of Leinster, was killed by Amlaib and his Vikings. In 864 AD, Lorcan MacAithel, king of Meath, was blinded by the High King Aed Finlaith. Amlaib, king of the Dublin Vikings, captured Conchobar MacDonchada, king of Brega, and had him drowned at Clonard in County Meath. In 865 AD, the Vikings used Dublin as a base for the Great Heathen Army's invasion of England. The Great Heathen Army was made up of Vikings from all over the Scandinavian world. Clare Downham argues that Ivar the Boneless, the commander of the Great Heathen Army, was the same person as Imar, co-king of Dublin and Amlaib's brother. In 866 AD, Amlaib and Ostley, co-kings of Dublin, took their Viking forces and plundered the Pictish kingdom of Forchew in Scotland. They returned to Dublin with many prisoners. In 866 AD, while Amlaib and Ostley were away invading Forchew, Flann MacConaill, king of Brega, took revenge for the Viking invasion of Brega in 863 AD and killed many Norsemen who stayed behind in Dublin. In 866 AD, Kennedy MacGathani, king of Lugis, defeated the Norsemen at Mundrahead in County Louth. In 867 AD, a force led by Kennedy and Maelcernan MacRonan burned Amlaib's fortress at Clondalkin, 8 miles south of Dublin Centre. Over 100 of Amlaib's Viking warriors were killed in the attack on Clondalkin. Maelcernan MacRonan was a champion of the Leinster nobility, though he was originally of the Carriage-Lucric clan of Westmunster. Later in 867 AD, the force led by Kennedy and Maelcernan MacRonan made a successful attack on Dublin itself. In the attack on Dublin, the Viking leader Odell Mickley was killed. Amlaib retaliated by plundering the monastery of Leesmore in County Waterford, Munster. In 867 AD, Amlaib killed his brother Ostley in a fight over one of Amlaib's wives. In 869 AD, Maelcernan MacRonan was expelled from Leinster. He allied himself by marriage to High King Aed Finlaith and invaded Leinster. Maelcernan MacRonan was defeated by the forces of Leinster and killed in the fighting. His body was hacked to pieces and his head cut off. His head was given to the Vikings of Dublin, who used it for target practice before throwing it into the sea. In 869 AD, Amlaib plundered the great monastic settlement of Imar. This raid was possibly launched in retaliation for the death of his son Carlos in 868 AD at the Battle of Killinere in County Louth against the forces of Aed Finlaith, High King of Tara and Protector of Imar. Over 500 Vikings were killed in the 868 AD Battle of Killinere. In 870 AD, Ivar the Boneless, who may be the same person as Imar, left his brother Halfdan Ragnarsson in charge of the great heathen army in England. At this point in time, Ivar the Boneless disappears from all English records. In 870 AD, Imar reemerges in the Irish Annals. In 870 AD, Amlaib and Imar laid siege to Dumbarton Rock, the capital and central fortress of the Brighton Kingdom of Strathclyde. They captured the fortress on Dumbarton Rock after its defenders ran out of water after a 4-month-long siege. In 871 AD, Amlaib and Imar returned from Strathclyde to Dublin with a fleet of 200 ships to transport a great deal of plunder and Pictish, Brighton, and Anglo-Saxon slaves for their slave markets in Dublin. Some of the slaves were sold in Ireland. Other slaves were sold to pagan countries in Scandinavia. Still other slaves were sold to merchants from Muslim Spain or Muslim North Africa. There was a great appetite for slaves in the Muslim world. Other slaves were shipped to Constantinople, where they could be sold to Middle Eastern slave traders and even to Asian slave traders along the Silk Road to China. It is ironic that Dublin would develop a huge slave market under the Norse in the 9th and 10th centuries AD. This was long after St. Patrick, who was captured by Irish pirates and held as a slave by pagan Irish for 6 years, preached against slavery in Ireland in the 5th century AD. In his letter to Caroctacus, a British king, St. Patrick pleads against slavery and the sale of Christian captives to pagan countries where they would be enslaved. It is unknown if Arthgal ap Dithwal, king of Dumbarton Rock, was captured by Amlab and Imar, or if he escaped into Pictland. Constantine MacCanada may have wanted Arthgal ap Dithwal dead to clear the way for Arthgal's son, Ruin ap Arthgal, to become king of Strathclyde. Ruin ap Arthgal was married to Constantine MacCanada's sister. Aed MacCanada, Constantine MacCanada's brother, became king of the Picts in 877 AD after Constantine was killed fighting the Vikings. Ruin ab Arthgal might have died in the same battle against the Vikings. Aed MacCanada was murdered by his own men in 878 AD. With the deaths of Constantine, Ruin, and Aed in the years 877 AD and 878 AD, Ruin's son Cogad became king of both Strathclyde and the Picts. In 870 AD, while Amlaib and Imar were laying siege to Dumbarton Rock, the forces of Aed Finlaith, High King of Tara, attacked their enemies in Ireland. The territory of the Dublin Vikings and the territory of their Leinster allies was laid waste from Dublin to Gowran. It is not clear if the city of Dublin itself was sacked. Gowran is a town in Kilkenny County at the far western border of the Leinster region. Also in 870 AD, Ulster, a leader of the Gaedhil Vikings, led his forces into eastern Ireland and killed Maelshicnail MacNeil, one of the 2 kings of South Bregor. In 872 AD, the Fragmentary Annals of Ireland records, quote, "The kings of the foreigners," unquote, massacred the men of the 3 plains and the 3 commons in the counties Louth, Kildare, and Carlow. We can assume that Amlaib and Imar were the kings of the foreigners. In 873 AD, Imar's death is recorded in the Annals of Ulster and the Chronicon Scotorum. These annals title Imar, quote, "King of the Norsemen of all Ireland and Britain," unquote. The Fragmentary Annals of Ireland for 873 reports that, quote, "the king of Lochlann," unquote, died of a, quote, sudden horrible disease, unquote. The death of Imar is implied. Lochlan is either Scotland or Norway. It is speculated the horrible disease that Imar died from crippled him or otherwise made him unable to walk and may be the source of his nickname Ivar the Boneless. According to the Chronicle of the Kings of Alba, Amlaib died around 874 or 875 in Dollar, Clonmacnoise, Scotland. Amlaib died during a war against Constantine mac Canada, king of the Picts, also known as Constantine I of Scotland. The deaths of Amlaib and Imar led to 3 decades of uncertainty for the Norse settlements in Ireland. The Vikings had been united under these powerful kings of Dublin. In the power vacuum, the Vikings began to fight among themselves. The divisions in the Scandinavian communities made it easier for the Irish to defeat them. In the 3 decades that followed the deaths of Amlaib and Imar, the Norse colonies at Dublin, Wexford, Waterford, Cork, and Limerick fell under the control of the Irish kings. In Dublin, the clan of Amlaib and Imar, the Ívarr, still held the reins of power until they were briefly expelled by the Irish in 902 AD. Upon Amlaib's death in 874 AD, his son Oystein mac Amlaib, or Eystein Olafsson, became king of Dublin in the Dublin Vikings. Oystein's rule was disputed by Imar's self-proclaimed brother Halfdan Ragnarsson, king of York and Northumbria in the northern half of the Danelaw in England. Guthrum ruled the southern Danelaw in England. In my next video, I shall recount the struggle between Oystein mac Amlaib and Halfdan Ragnarsson for the control of Dublin and the continuing saga of the Ívarr. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed my video and would like to help me make similar content, please hit like and subscribe.